So give us a little background here. You started with Epic events when they were still going on. Were you in the same role now that you were doing back then? You were lining up all the concerts, you were facilitating everything?
Yes. Do you want my history starting before Epic in the event industry or starting at Epic?
Sure, you can give us a brief leading up to Epic.
Okay, so, I was late 20s living in Grand Forks and wanted to figure out what I was going to do in life. And they're building Ingolstadt Arena. Okay. And my neighbor was Chris Semrau. I don't know if you remember that name. He was the general manager of the Denny Sanford in Sioux Falls, and now he's the general manager of Paycom Center in Oklahoma City, where the Thunder play.
Sure.
So he was my neighbor. He's like, "Oh, just go see what's available." And so I went to Ingolstadt Arena, and the only thing that was available was volunteer tour guide. But I kind of always thought that, hey, you try to get into the company you want to be a part of and do whatever you can to start there. So I was a volunteer tour guide, and one day the general manager's wife was on the tour I was giving, and she told him I had done a good job or something. So through some conversations, I became the first event coordinator at Ingolstadt Arena, and I was there for 8 years. Then I moved to Fargo because I was the first general manager at Shields Arena. And I was there for 3 years through construction, through the first 2 years of Fargo Force hockey, and learned a lot with that one. That was a tough time. It was 2008, the housing crisis, everything else. We had a bunch of sponsors lined up and people were pulling left and right. And actually, when I was at Ingolstadt Arena, I had gotten to start doing a lot of consulting and just some event gigs like the Super Bowl or the NCAA Frozen Four, Final Four. I've gone to a lot of fan fests and worked at them and done some contract work. So when I was at Shields Arena, I couldn't do any of that. So I stepped back from Shields Arena and I just started doing consulting. And before long, I started some contract work at Alaris Center, and I did all their marketing, their sales of sponsorship, and their booking for concerts. So that's kind of when I got into booking concerts, and we had a phenomenal run at the Alaris Center when I was there. We had, I think, George Strait, Jason Aldean a couple times, the Eagles, and Def Leppard. And anyways, fast forward a couple years, and Epic was starting to build the lights and asked if I'd come on board to oversee what happens there at that time. And over the years, things evolved to where we were promoting concerts there. So that was my main job at Epic. It was Epic Events. I try to always clarify that it was Epic Events.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, after the whole Denfeld. Well, you've worked at, my gosh, I mean, you just rattled off every big arena on the eastern side of the state here.
Yeah. It's the concert and event industry is worldwide, but a small community. So it seems like someone from every building, and just when opportunities open, I get some calls.
So Ernest and Henning was after Epic Events and the whole thing settled down. Ernest and Henning is now your own promotion company.
Yes, Ernest and Henning Events I've had for about 13, 14 years now. I was just using that as an LLC when I do some of that contracting work I talked about earlier. So I had it set up in the event realm, et cetera, so it was easy to transition. Well, it wasn't easy, but when I left Epic, I had a LLC already set up to do this kind of work.
Sure. Was it an easy transition when Epic Events went down? You were already kind of familiar with the system over there. Basically, it was just a matter of just changing the name, essentially. I mean, it sounds like you were already doing it anyway.
Yeah, operationally, not a learning curve there. When Epic, when they went away, and I took over the events, I was able to take over the contracts with the artists and contracts with the lights as a venue because it's city owned. We rent that, or we were renting that. Now I rent it. The challenge year one was Epic had sold tickets to these events, and the ticket money wasn't all there anymore. So, it was quite an investment for me to take those over. But again, like I mentioned, being a small community, if 20,000 people wouldn't have got the concerts that they paid for, and my name was attached to it, I just knew I'd never work in this industry again. So it was kind of something I've looked at doing in the past, but for me, it was the only way to survive would be to make it right with every ticket buyer, every sponsor. There were sponsorships sold by Epic Events. They're year-long sponsorships, and the sponsor had paid. The money. I never got the money, but I still fulfilled it over the year just because the right thing to do. But again, I couldn't say no and then go back to them for sponsorship dollars in the future. So,
Sure.
So it was a financially difficult, but operationally it was, again, pretty much what I was doing before.
Sure. Can you tell us exactly what Ernest and Henning does and then where you specialize at? Is it only the lights or do you guys expand outside of that?
Yeah, Ernest and Henning is my company. I'm the single employee.
Okay.
Most of the concerts I work on and do are at the Lights in West Fargo. And again, I'm working to expand that. This year we're actually going to have 8 concerts minimum at the Lights. And in the past, we've bounced from 5 to 7, so this will be a little on the heavier side. I have started looking at other opportunities at other venues across mostly North Dakota. And just because, the Lights is a busy place. And I've got opportunity for a concert in September that would be a pretty big name, but the Lights is rented out already. I've gone to Shields Arena, they're rented out. I went to the Newman Outdoor Field. They've got playoffs maybe. So it's a challenge sometimes when that name drops and you don't have a place to do it. So I've been exploring other places, and I've talked with Shields Arena and Ingleside Arena and stuff about bringing shows to those places, and nothing's worked out yet. But sure. I'm assuming this year or next year we'll be doing something beyond the Lights.
Okay. If you don't mind me asking, exactly, to be blunt, exactly how do you make your money off of these concerts?
Yeah.
Is it like from drink sales? Is it from just ticket sales exclusively?
Yeah, all of the above. So,
Okay.
So if I make an example and say there's an artist out there that costs $100,000. Sometimes it costs $100,000 no matter if I sell one ticket or if I sell all 4,000. Other times it's $100,000, but when I hit 3,000, I have to pay another 25,000. They always say there's no bad shows, just bad deals.
Okay.
So really my income stream at concerts come from sponsorships, which, we have a handful of sponsors. It comes from ticket sales. I do get a portion of alcohol sales at the Lights as part of my rental deal. And so every show, it's a little different. Sometimes I make money on tickets. If I do a show, and this goes for a lot of venues, my nut is like $50,000 above the cost of the artist because I have to pay for sound and lights, got to advertise, I've got some overhead, I've got office space and things like that. We bring in security, a lot of portable restrooms, things like that. So, 50,000 is kind of that base number that I always look at. When I'm looking at an artist, I say they cost X plus 50,000 equals this. I try to figure out, where can ticket prices be, where they're manageable, not too expensive, where it makes sense. And I, just multiply it by the number of tickets I think it can sell. And if I can break even on ticket sales to cover the expense of the artist and the venue and the rent, that usually makes sense to me because I will get some on the alcohol sales. And then also the sponsorships help, and I need people at these events to, drive those sponsorship dollars. So it can vary. Sometimes I lose money on the ticket, but make money on the event. So
sure.
It just depends on how it is and the weather. Probably 4 years ago we had Dwight Yoakam, and it was lining up to be just a great show. We were 2/3 of the way of selling out, but it was a Thursday concert, and the Saturday before, everyone's iPhone told you it was 100% chance of rain. We sold 0 tickets from Saturday through Thursday, and that's usually one of the big components of your ticket sales is that last week, and it rained 2.5 inches that day. It was a great show, but no one was going to go out into the rain, and that's one of the hurdles of doing events outside. I think nothing's better than a concert outside if it goes off without a hitch, but that weather is the wild card.
Yeah.
Wow.
I gotta adjust your mic for that. So
Oh, sorry, am I?
Oh, it's bopping down on you.
it's popping down on you. Sorry.
No, you can.
There you go.
Okay,
Much
nice.
better. Sorry.
So really, like the event, the actual location, like the lights in this instance, they're not responsible for really anything. You're the bathrooms, you are the ticket sales, the marketing, the advertising, the drinks, like all of that is all through you.
No, the lights is the venue. West Fargo Events is a nonprofit that manages the lights for the city of West Fargo. They line up a ton of this stuff. And some things are included in my rent number.
Okay.
Some things are not. And when I started Ernest and Henning, I had our Ticketmaster contract. I have since transferred that over to West Fargo Events, so they have some revenue streams just on facility fees and ticketing. So that's helped them cover some of the costs that maybe traditionally I would have paid for if I was handling all the tickets and getting all the fees. We kind of shared that. And West Fargo Events was they were a big part of me moving on beyond Epic. As I was just telling someone the other day, Epic, it was 2 days, it was Monday, and everything kind of went to hell on a Friday. And Monday morning, the president of West Fargo Events and their executive director gave me a call and said, hey, what can we do to help to keep these concerts going? And, it meant a lot to me, and it meant a lot to, again, those ticket holders that had bought tickets and expected to see Ice Cube and Teddy Swims that summer.
Yeah.
So it, a lot of expenses. They're broken out depending on the deal. And some are different. If it's a show that doesn't have a lot of production, but it has, if we have a lot of, I don't know, if it's something where there's, maybe a metal concert or rap concert where there's higher security numbers, sometimes some of that burden is minimized by the rent structure for that one. But everyone's a little bit different.
Sure. Are there certain genres that are more profitable than others? Like, does it really matter, or is it just?
It's, I always say, I would do Hairball and Blackhawk every other week if I could. The problem there, though, Hairball, you can see them multiple times now.
Yeah.
The buyer has started realizing, like, it's probably not going to sell out, so I'm going to wait till the show. And then again, weather will dictate. It can be a amazing night, or like, oh boy, this is not going well.
Yeah.
It's always that if you can catch lightning in a bottle, you're going to make the most money. Teddy Swims, I didn't know who he was. And I'm honest about that. He was just, up and coming. And when he played the lights, it was the biggest venue he'd ever played. And, we were getting complaints that, why isn't he playing a bigger venue? It's like, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
So that was like that lightning in a bottle. You happen to get the right artist at the right time. And there's money to be made on shows like that. It's just, my goal for the lights, at least, is I want it to be a place where people have fun. It's a safe experience. It's a good experience, no matter who the show is. And that's hard to do. I'd go to any show at Red Rocks just because it's Red Rocks and it's cool, et cetera. But, to get that customer service level, that cleanliness level, that just that fun atmosphere all the time, that's what we strive for, or West Fargo Events strives for over there. I'd love for it not to matter who the show is, because in your question, it's like, yeah, I'd love to get less talent and sell more tickets, but it's not as easy as that.
Yeah. Yeah. What's it like working with some of these artists? Are you communicating directly, like, with the artist specifically, or with their agent? I would assume bigger artists like John Party, for example, who I saw last year, maybe at the Lights, or was it 2 years ago?
2 years ago, he was at the Lights.
Yeah, really good show. But is that something that is kind of a challenge for you, the communication aspect?
It's not too bad. So when I was at Alara Center and beyond there, I was working with a lot of different promoters, agencies, et cetera. When I was at Epic, I had kind of two hats. I was running Epic events, and I was also the developer when it came to a public space or a plaza space or things like that. And after COVID, so many agencies changed or shut down or merged, and there was so many artists leaving, coming, going, doing different things, that not doing it full time all the time, I didn't think I'd be able to, am I paying this person $20,000 more than they're worth? So I actually started working with BAT Entertainment. They're out of St. Cloud, Minnesota. They've booked shows at Target Field and in the Shakopee area back in the day when they had Twin Cities Summer Jam. They do a casino in Hinckley. I've worked with them. They're primarily my buyer for things. I still know the agencies and stuff that we work with. But yeah, I'm just not a fanboy. When it comes, when I was at Ingolstadt Arena, I'll never forget Dennis Miller. He was there for homecoming, and he was, so nice, so everything. So it was just like, oh wow, celebrities are sure nice. Then right when he got off the stage, he looked and said, "Where's my fucking check?" It was just, and it was probably a joking thing, but they're working. I feel, I'm paying them, but it's the only industry out there that you hire someone to work for you all day, but you feel like you're working for them all day. It's bizarre that way.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's just a simple transaction, just like anything else. It's
and again, we try, if we find out, we had Warren Ziders last year, and, we called over to the wellness center and got, someone to take them in privately and all this, we try to accommodate for those type of things. Or, Ice Cube, I think he had 30 people with him. His dad was traveling with him. It was just,
my goodness.
And it's it's fun, but the best shows are the ones where the artist, and this has happened several times, they fly into Fargo and the opener's on the stage and they're just landing. Then they get in there, pick them up in a Suburban, drop them off behind the stage. They climb up there and sing and just go back to the airport. Then at least you don't have to worry about anything during the day.
I believe it.
Yeah, when we had Justin Moore years ago, their biggest complaint was, or their only complaint was where they had to park because he couldn't get satellite television in his bus,
goodness.
and he's a big sports fan. So.
Oh, that's funny. I used to work for U Motors, if you're familiar with them. So I used to do sales there. And last year, Hardy was in town for WeFest, and the event center called up U Motors and asked because they were a big sponsor of it. And he was just hanging out at WeFest looking for something to do. So we took him out on a pontoon and took him cruising throughout Pelican Lake, just because they're just humans and they're just looking to do something. They're sitting there in their bus waiting to do their job. And it's just kind of eye-opening to see, when you're not being a fanboy, it's they're just humans that are looking to do something.
Absolutely. When we had Rascal Flatts at the Ingolstadt, probably 15 or probably 25 years ago now. And, after they got off stage, each and every one of the three came to see the ones of us that they'd been working with that day and just, personally say thank you. But then again, that's the beginning of their career. They're still on the way up, which is kind of a catch-22. Sometimes, they don't, they don't realize that, that the staff, et cetera, will bend over backwards to make them happy, which is great because they are humans then. But then sometimes on the way up, they're getting flooded with so much, media, et cetera, then it's I need everything. And it's really, you got that one song, but.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you have anybody last year that you felt like you really had to cater to? Anybody that came through that you were just this guy's just a pain in my ass?
No, it was, last year we had Little Big Town, and that was, that was a great get for us because they've Grammys and this and that, and they're doing Christmas shows and everything, and that they were just the nicest people, and they traveled in with I don't know who's married to who and whose kids are what, but that's kind of the fun part of when you can see them actually being humans and their kids are there and they're talking to them about assignment they have at school or a baseball game they played the week before. It's oh man, they kind of do some of that stuff as well. No, last year was pretty easy. We had Brett Michaels at the end of the year, and he's kind of known throughout the industry as the nicest guy. He just makes everyone feel like they're the only person in the room talking to him. And they were flying out the next morning, and I picked them up at the at the hotel the morning after to bring them to the airport. And it was like a week or two before the honor flight was taking off, and I was going with my dad on the honor flight last year, and he's like, "You tell your dad thing," it's like it's a little bit over the top, but you know what, he does a nice job with fans and people he works with.
That's really cool. What's the process like for actually booking these events? Like, do you have a list of 100 names that you're trying to get, and it's like, oh, they're busy, they can't commit, or is it usually pretty easy to actually get somebody?
It's a mix. Sometimes it just falls together, and sometimes there's a new artist that you're like, oh, it's not gonna be hard to get that person, and they just get too big too fast, or if an artist is young, they like to jump onto like a Hardy tour. If they can be an opener on a Luke Combs stadium show, I mean, it's like, they're going to do it. And the agencies behind the bigger stars like to take their smaller stars, get them on the bill with the bigger stars, and just, get them out there. So we usually, January through March seems to be when we book our summer shows, just because some of those tour plans have come together, which can be good for us because sometimes, hey, they're playing in Montana, then they're playing Minneapolis, but there's 4 days in between. They've got this great opener. Let's try to grab him or her or them. It's always different. We do start with a list. I mean, this summer when we're at the shows, everyone's like, well, what do you do during the concerts? And I usually sit in my office with my booking guy, and we're just going over, dates unless there's issues. So yeah, we definitely look at, who's up and coming or who would be great to get here. We always talk about Counting Crow. I love to get the Counting Crows here. I mean, I feel like they've been booked in Fargo like 15 times and never made it. There's artists out there like that it's, they've been here or they're probably past their prime, but it would be great to get them. Then there's people that are just selling tickets in venues our size. So traditionally what I do is look at markets that are similar to the market. So in this case, Fargo, Sioux Falls would be a good one that matches up to it. And, Green Bay. I mean, there's a lot of metro areas that are similar in size. Then you kind of look at the artists and what they've done in those. And it's interesting how close it is. The other thing I've started using now is AI. There's the program I use is called Claude, and honestly, I can type in the artist I'm looking for, the date I'm looking for, ask what ticket prices should be, what's my expected attendance, and it's going to be interesting because every show we've got this summer I've done that for. So it'll be interesting to see if it matches up in the end. But
have you ever just like shot for the moon and reached out to like somebody crazy, and they were like, nah, no way.
I was years ago. So when I was at Alaris Center, they just could not. They were having trouble booking anyone, and they just didn't really have anyone working on it. And I didn't know any better, so I reached out. Now I'm going to forget the name. Basically the president of CAA. His name is Rob Light, and he's like a legend. He's like, every year when Rolling Stone or Billboard magazine comes out, 50 most powerful people, he's in the top 5 all the time. But I mean, I don't know any better. So I thought Bon Jovi would be a great show to get into Alaris Center. So I had a program where I could look who represented them, and it's this guy named Rob Light. So I called him and left a message or sent an email or something. But he got back to me and said, hey, do you have time for a call this week? And I said, yeah, and I just had a really nice talk with him. And then, like weeks later, I start finding out who this guy is. I'm like, well, how awesome is that he took time? I mean, and I actually ran into him at a conference like a year or two later. And I said, hey, Mr. Light, my name is Lance. I reached out to you. I just want to say I appreciate it. And he's like, did you get the show? I'm like, no, but it was still kind of neat that way.
That's funny.
Yeah. I mean, I did. So last year I reached out to him just because, you're supposed to book who sells, not who you like. But, one on his short roster is Green Day, and they're playing the cities, and I've been a fan my whole life. And I reached out and just said, hey, any chance for underplay in Fargo at the lights in West Fargo, and he responded, but it was just no. Nothing else.
Hey, at least he responded, you know.
You know, we were really close 3 years ago to getting the Killers. They hadn't toured for a while, and they were going to play Target Field, and they wanted to play a small venue first. And, you know, we had all their production things, looking through everything, and it was a group from the Twin Cities. We were doing this concert in a partnership with the Minnesota Twins. And without them knowing, the Minnesota Twins said, oh, yeah, you can play First Avenue the night before. And it's like, oh, what are you doing? It's like right across the streets. But anyway, so that was one that would have been fun to do. But
yeah, so you got, let's see. So the ones that John Party for this year, you got the Buckaroo event already lined up.
Yep.
Who's the third? You just
I
announced
got Travis Tritt coming.
Travis
nice.
Tritt, yep.
Yeah, and we just announced today that Kentucky Headhunters are opening for him, who are another classic country band. We're going to be announcing probably in the next week or so, we're going to do a Christian concert out at the Lights. That genre has really exploded in popularity. We've got another country show coming end of July that we'll be announcing in the next week or two. We just actually got it confirmed today. Probably a few shows in September as well. You know, country really sells well. I don't want to paint myself into a corner of only having country. But yeah, this year's going to be country heavy.
So
yeah, I think
are most of the concerts that you have, are they set on Thursdays, or are they just whenever people are available? I feel like that was a big, and I would love to hear your take on this from the actual promoter. So I remember last year, and I guess I would say the last couple, I remember being at some events, and for some reason, if it was on a Saturday, maybe it just was the ones I happened to be at, there wasn't as many people as I was expecting. And I was always getting feedback. It was the same feedback the fair was getting, is that, well, if it's on a Saturday, everybody wants to be at the lake. Do you see that your like Thursday shows are doing better than like a Friday or a Saturday, or has that made like no bearing at all?
it has made no difference over the history of the Lights, what night it's on. It seems to average out. And yeah, we always hear the lake excuse. And with 250,000 people in the metro, what is that like number? Is it 25,000 people that have access to a lake cabin or friends or own one? The tough part is those 25, if it's 25,000, those people tend to have dollars that are available for entertainment. So that's the hard part, is people that may be willing to, spend some money to go out for a night are leaving town, but I'm not sure. I think June is historically difficult because weather seems to be a little bit more iffy. But as the world changes, I feel like June will become better for us. But yeah, I don't know. I would stay away from, Mondays and Sun. It depends on the act too. If it's a act with an older demographic and it's not going to be a group that's coming out to party, I mean, P-A-R-T-Y. A Sunday night would be fine, I think. But, we are always trying Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I would say Thursday I do like because I think it has a little bit less competition than summer. And that can be for things going on in town, if it's street fairs or if it's going to the lake, et cetera. But, we are at the mercy of a lot of artists, their schedules. And the nice thing is, historically in the concert industry, bigger concerts would play bigger cities during the week, just because they've got enough of an audience there, enough of a population to fill the building no matter when the show is. Then they would come to a smaller market on a Thursday, Friday, or Saturday, just because there's a less population and you need more reasons to get those people to that venue. So, but again, it's crazy. I mean, I never thought they could charge what they charge for tickets. Really, COVID really, I feel, messed that up. I think every artist that wasn't able to perform for 2 years are trying to make that up like tenfold though. It's like,
yeah,
I've never, I bought 2 tickets for Zach Bryan 2 years ago at US Bank Stadium, and it was $1,000. And,
wow.
For his tour, there was a limit to most venues of your service fee could be 17% of the ticket price. US Bank, it was like 40%. So, I mean, you buy 2 tickets that were $299 a piece and it ends up being $1,000. It's kind of like, wow, that's a lot of money for one night.
Yeah. Talking about artists trying to make some of that money back, can you give us any insight of numbers of like, what does somebody like John Party, like what's their starting price of like, I'll come to your city for X amount of dollars? I mean, I think that's a huge question that I for sure wonder. Yeah.
Well, maybe I'll answer it this way because I don't like sharing exact numbers and costs on those, just again, small world. And but the first couple of years of the lights, I don't know if we ever got over $100,000 for an artist. And that was, the lights opened during COVID. And probably for the first 3 to 4 years it was that way. Last year, I had no artists were less than 100,000. So and again, it's sometimes it's quality, sometimes it's where they're at in their career, but it's gone up a lot. I mean, Ice Cube was a good buy for us. It was an expensive show for us, but the year after he went on an arena tour and selling out big arenas. So we were excited to get him at that time. He was one of those artists that was on that list of like, God, it would be neat to get Ice Cube here, But I just, generally, it's more. Sure. But I don't know. I struggle sometimes with, I know Kid Rock was in Washington, D.C., testifying in front of Congress a couple weeks ago about ticket fees and Ticketmaster monopolies and robots and or ticket buy, or something along those lines. And someone's like, "Well, what do you think about that?" I said, "Well, I take it with a grain of salt because there's a guy who charges over $1 million for 2 hours of work, and he's there saying, Ticketmaster's the evil one." And I mean, I love Ticketmaster. It's simple, it works well, et cetera. And they need to make money too, I guess. But I don't know, there seems to be plenty to go around.
So when you're giving off those big numbers, like you said, it hadn't been over 100, and then last year nothing was under 100. Mm-hmm. Now you're saying for the entire artist and their band and the posse and their bus to get there, their transportation. Like, so if show costs, let's just say 100,000 for an easy number, that's everything, or that's what the artist specifically walks away with?
That's everything you just mentioned is included in there. I mean, sometimes if it's a fly-in date, someone might be like, "Hey, it's $100,000, but I need $25,000 for my private jet." So they might be on top, but usually it's one number. And in our situation, we get a lot of artists that play in Hinckley, Minnesota, and come this way, or Sioux Falls that come this way, and usually they're routed. Or like last year, we had Little Big Town in Tyler Hubbard. They were up in Northwest Minnesota playing a festival. I mean, they were driving through Fargo to get on the airplane to fly wherever. So it really depends, but usually routing dictates it, and it's just one price with that bonus structure.
Sure. The jet was kind of the big thing I was wondering, because I figure at some point, at a certain point, you're not on a tour bus anymore. They're traveling your things, and then you're getting on. So you're probably pretty familiar with the jet center up there. Have you ever pulled up and seen somebody get off and just be like, "Damn, that's a nice plane"?
Little Big Town last year, we had to bring a SUV and a van out there, and they're in a nice private jet and unloaded. But then again, it makes a difference when they're the nicest people, and they're just like, "Oh, thanks for picking us up." It's like, "Oh yeah, So
and you're actually picking those guys up.
I try not to, but in that situation, they needed a second vehicle, and I was the one with a good sized vehicle, so I went out there. And again, I've been, a couple of years ago, I mentioned Ice Cube had quite a big posse with him, and so we needed multiple people. And I went out to the airport, and I had a friend that had a Suburban that came along, and Ice Cube just came out and got in her vehicle, and I had all the security guys, and I'm like, that's fine, because it's usually someone like Ice Cube will just sit there on his headphones and or talk on the phone. But these security guys, you hear the good stuff from those guys anyways. So
that's funny. I'm going to Morgan Wallen at US Bank Stadium in April, so I'm excited about that. But I guess my question was, is it possible for massive, because Morgan Wallen is, probably the number one country artist right now. Is it possible for an event to lose money? Like Morgan Wallen makes a lot of money, but is it possible that they're just booking Morgan Wallen just to say that US Bank booked Morgan Wallen? Or is that a home run for him no matter what? Or is it possible that they overpaid for him?
That's kind of a loaded question too, because so when Garth Brooks, his old model, and this is from years ago, he used to basically allow the venue to make $50,000 a night or a show. And, which for an arena, I mean, that's not that great a night. It takes a lot of people, a lot of people put work, but there is some of that put a feather in your hat type of deal.
Right.
And that was what happened with Adele on her last tour. So, years ago, arenas had food and beverage, they had parking, they had suites, they had this or that to make money on. Now it's really gotten down to just suites. I mean, a lot of the bigger artists are, hey, here's my cost, here's my bonus structure, we're going to throw everything in the pot, here's what I'm taking, you get what's left. And suites have always been kind of like, hey, that's ours, the building. But Adele was like, no, they're taking part of the suites. And, sometimes suites have year-long contracts, and how do you value that? And that one, at least friends of mine that work in the larger cities and bigger arenas, that was strictly a feather in your hat to get Adele.
Wow.
Sure.
And it's, great for the city. One thing you hear about, especially with public buildings, is economic impact and what that brings in. So again, it's maybe not great for the arena, but it was really good for the city. Even like US Bank Stadium, when they were looking for a management company, it's a feather in these management companies' hats to have an NFL building. Yeah. And they have a very low amount of profitability for the management company, but they just want to have access to that. They want to be able to do the Morgan Wallens, et cetera.
Do you think US Bank Stadium just has like one management company that does all of their concerts, or is there multiple contractors that be like, hey, you could present them with something of, hey, I have this artist who is willing to play, and you can go through the numbers, or is it just one company?
Well, no. So there's management companies and there's promoters. So the management company for US Bank Stadium is, I think it's Legends now. It was SMG. And they consolidated with AEG Management a few years ago, but now the Legends, who was owned by the Cowboys at one time.
Sure.
They are the management company. I'm not sure who's bringing Morgan Wallen. There's probably Live Nation or AEG Presents. Those are the two big ones. So yeah, I can't remember your full question, but they're different, and anyone can bring anyone usually. Okay,
that was mainly my question.
There is, so in Shakopee this summer, they're going to open up the Mystic Lake Amphitheater.
Ooh,
that
love
is
Mystic Lake.
What's that?
I said I love Mystic Lake.
I've never been there.
This is in Shakopee though. It's just they bought the naming rights for it. It's 19,000 seats. It's operated and I believe owned by Live Nation. So Live Nation has put up these amphitheaters, they call them sheds, across the United States. And then they book the artists, for 25 or 30 shows throughout the summer, and they play all these sheds. I don't know how anyone can compete with that. I mean, Live Nation owns Ticketmaster, they're selling the tickets. They gave an artist, if an artist is $1 million to a company like mine, like Live Nation will come in and say, hey, we'll give you $500,000, but we're going to give you 40 dates. We're going to do all the transportation, and we're going to give you a bonus. It's just easier, for that artist or that agency to just say, yep, we'll just do that, and then our summer's planned. Mm-hmm. But it's just kind of, they're bigger, and it just works that way for those guys.
Sure.
Yeah, like I said, kind of a monopoly type thing. That's Kid Rock up there arguing against it or whatever, but
yeah, I don't know.
That's kind of funny here. Well, I tell you, we like to kind of end on kind of a fun note here. Yeah. We want to ask you, what are I guess there's only 3 that are coming out here. How about what are your 3 favorite shows that you've ever put on at the Lights specifically?
Well, John Party the first time was 2 years ago. That was our first concert as Ernest and Henning. And, you know, not to get into the drama, but, you know, we had some competitive promoters in the region that were, you know, trying to take those shows after the Epic collapsed. So it took, you know, money from my wife and I's bank account, my nephews and my booking partner to get that show done, and for it to be successful was just great. It was a perfect night. It was misting out, but it was just awesome. It was like the best show we've ever done there. I like Teddy Swims just because you know, it was so new and unexpected, and like, you know, half the people I talked to were like, who's that? And they're half are like, oh my God, I can't believe he's coming. So that one was good. And honestly, and I'll say this maybe because we have them coming again this year for Buckaroo, but Old Crow Medicine Show, it's like the best musicians I've ever been at. That's like one of the most favorite concerts I've ever seen. Wow. And I didn't, you know, Wagon Wheel. I mean, you know, that's their song, but man, they are good. I mean, there's a reason they play every New Year's Eve at the Ryman for like the last 20 years.
Wow.
Awesome.
Yeah, I have to compliment you on that John Party show. I still remember that. I had like 10 of my closest friends all go to that, and it's like there's not a bad seat in the house. Like it's clean, it's fun, it's close, upfront, and personal. Drinks are easy to access. Like it's a really fun event. I'm looking forward to him again.
Yeah, you know, the Lights is I've been describing it as it's like a street dance with a really good artist. It's you know, it's casual. You're not trying to make your way down the aisle, and it's fun, but it's, again, you know, it's not the right venue for every show.
Sure.
But if you want to go and have a good time, it's the place to be, I think.
Yeah. Thanks for being here, Lance.
Yeah.
We
Hey,
really
no
appreciate
problem.
it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.